U.S. President Donald Trump says Washington is low-keying its approach to Iran, signaling a shift toward mounting economic pressure rather than renewed military action. South Korea and the U.S. are set to launch their annual Ulchi Freedom Shield exercise next Monday, with this year's drills carrying added weight as the allies move forward with preparations for Seoul's wartime operational control transition. The extreme heat has eased across the country, with Seoul enjoying a break from tropical nights for the past 2 days. But the summer heat is far from over, with hot daytime temperatures expected to linger throughout the week. Tensions between Washington and Tehran are deepening as U.S. President Donald Trump signals a shift toward economic pressure, while Iran rolls out talks and demands major concessions from the U.S. Our Kim So-young starts us off.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Sunday that the United States is low-keying it in terms of its approach to Iran, signaling that Washington would rely on mounting economic pressure rather than launching a new military offensive. The remarks came during a phone call with Axios, saying the U.S. is only semi-negotiating with Iran. Trump said that the U.S. is just watching, with Iran suffering from massive inflation and is without money. Saying that Iran is in a very difficult situation economically, even lacking the funds to pay its soldiers, Trump added that the U.S. naval blockade of Iran has further worsened the economic crisis. Regarding the ongoing tug-of-war in negotiations, Trump said the situation would work out well, as it always does, like a chess game. This comes after Iran announced a list of demands for Washington to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Mohammad Bagher Zughadar, Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, has demanded the lifting of the U.S. naval blockade and the withdrawal of U.S. forces from the region. Tehran is also demanding that the U.S. compensate Iran for damage caused by what Tehran described as 2 wars of aggression and lift all sanctions and unconditionally release Iran's frozen assets. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Esmail Baghai said Tehran is not planning to impose transit tolls on vessels using the waterway as discussions over maritime service fees continue. The official stressed that the strait will remain closed until the U.S. changes its behavior. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi repeated the terms while adding that Washington and Tehran are not engaged in talks. Adding, while speaking to reporters, that Tehran will not start them as long as Washington breaches an interim deal signed in June.
From our perspective, until the violations of the Memorandum of Understanding and the U.S. compensates for what it has violated in the memorandum, there is no possibility of restarting negotiations.
Meanwhile, Iran has appointed a hardline former commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as the new secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council. This as tensions between Tehran and Washington persist. Mohsen Rezai is considered a hardline figure and served as the longest-serving commander of the IRGC, a total of 16 years. Kim So-young, Arirang News.
South Korea and the U.S. will kick off their annual Ulchi Freedom Shield exercise next Monday, with this year's drills taking on added significance as Seoul pushes ahead with preparations to regain wartime operational control. Our Park Kwon-woo reports.
The Republic of Korea and the U.S. are coming together once again for the Ulchi Freedom Shield exercise, set to run from the 17th through 27th. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff and the ROK-U.S. Combined Forces Command say the annual exercise is, as always, defensive in nature. This year's scenarios will reflect realistic threats and lessons learned from recent conflicts, including the changing nature of modern warfare.
Involving aspects of warfare, including drones, GPS disruptions, cyber attacks, are expected to be reflected in the exercise Space Forces Korea's. What I will also say is DPRK soldiers have deployed and fought in Ukraine, and they've taken those lessons they learned there and brought them back to North Korea. That changes the DPR capability, and our training accounts for that threat.
The annual exercise is drawing particular attention this year as a potential milestone in the transfer of wartime operational control, or OPCON, an issue expected to feature prominently at this year's Security Consultative Meeting.
During this exercise, our military will carry out a joint Korea-US evaluation of capabilities and systems based on standards both sides have agreed on in line with the conditions-based plan for the OPCON transfer. If those standards are met, we expect to be able to propose the verification of the future Combined Forces Command's full operational capability, along with a transfer timeline at this year's SCM. We will focus all our capabilities towards that goal.
Around 18,000 South Korean troops are expected to take part, with officials saying the scale is similar to previous years. The United Nations Command will also participate, with 70 personnel from 12 member states, including South Korea and the U.S. The deputy commander says the coalition of multinational countries is more important than ever.
The incredible grouping of nations that United Nations Command represents brings a really important component to deterrence, to the ability to de-escalate in crisis, and to have multinational legitimacy in the event of a conflict.
The UNC says interoperability across all domains remains, including new ones such as information, cyber, and space will be key focus as threats continue to evolve. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
More civilian casualties are being reported as both sides continue trading attacks, while Ukraine's widening air defense gap has prompted Kyiv to seek support from South Korea. Our Shin So-won has more.
Lethal attacks between Russia and Ukraine intensified over the weekend, including in the frontline region of Kharkiv. According to reports, a Russian missile struck a high-rise apartment building overnight on Sunday, killing at least 3 people and injuring 40 in Ukraine's Kharkiv region. This came after dozens of missiles and drones hit the southern port city of Odessa the day before, which left 12 people wounded.
I was sleeping right there, 6th floor, where there is no balcony. Nearby is that white window that is blown out. Together with my wife, we were just lucky.
Russian missile attacks on Ukrainian cities have become almost routine in recent weeks, with Moscow's reportedly exploiting Kiev's shortage of advanced air defense system by increasing the use of ballistic launches.
Ukraine does not have, nor will it ever have, the sort of funds that Russia has, which it is using to finance the war. Additional funding, specifically for Ukrainian production, is what is needed.
The shortage has worsened since the outbreak of the Iran war in late February, as demand for U.S.-made Patriot system has grown in the United States and across the Gulf region. Ballistic missiles are particularly difficult to intercept without such system, prompting Zelenskyy to press other Western allies for support. Zelenskyy also turned to South Korea for air defense support on Sunday amid warnings that up to 50,000 additional North Korean troops could be deployed to Russia. Despite its air defense shortages, Ukraine has continued to retaliate with drone strikes in commercial facilities inside Russia, claiming Russia's attacks on distribution networks have cost roughly $12 billion in losses. While Moscow and Kiev maintain that their attacks are aimed at military infrastructure rather than civilian targets, nearly 400 civilians were killed in Ukraine last month alone, and a drone explosion at a Black Sea resort in southern Russia killed 7 people, including 3 children. Shin So-won, Arirang News.
After weeks of relentless heat, South Korea is finally getting some relief. Seoul's 17-day run of tropical nights has come to an end as the heat dome over the Korean peninsula begins to weaken. Jung Hae-rim tells us more.
The scorching heat that gripped South Korea over the past few weeks has finally eased, with noticeably cooler conditions felt across Seoul on Monday. Even in the middle of the day, lower temperatures, down to 34.3 degrees Celsius, brought some relief to people outside.
Last week, just standing outside made me sweat. This week has been breezy, so it's easier to walk around.
Simply being outdoors was stressful last week because of the heat, but now it's cooler so I can take walks after I eat at night.
Just last week, standing outside here at Gangnam Station for even a few minutes was difficult, with temperatures climbing close to 40 degrees Celsius. But today the heat is much more bearable, and there is even a breeze in shaded areas. For the first time in more than 2 weeks, Seoul's overnight low fell to 24.8 degrees Celsius on Monday, ending a 17-day streak in which temperatures remained above 25 degrees Celsius through the night. Until recently, Korea had been trapped beneath two powerful high-pressure systems, which formed what is often called a double heat dome, trapping hot air over the country. But both systems have now weakened and shifted, allowing some of the accumulated heat to escape. The KBO League will also resume on Tuesday after games were suspended due to the extreme heat. The most severe heat alerts have now been lifted, but several heat advisories remain in parts of the country, including the capital region. Daytime temperatures are also expected to stay near or slightly above seasonal averages, with Seoul forecast to reach 33 degrees Celsius on Tuesday and 34 degrees in Gwangju. Apparent temperatures could still reach around 33 degrees in the capital region and southern parts of the country. Meanwhile, the side effects of nearby typhoons could bring greater weather volatility. Typhoon Dolphin, now over eastern China, and Typhoon Chanhom near Japan are reshaping airflows across East Asia, making Korea's weather increasingly unstable.
Typhoons have shifted the pressure pattern, but the North Pacific and Tibetan highs could strengthen again, so we need to keep monitoring the situation.
Although neither of the typhoons are expected to directly hit the country, their side effects could bring more rain and sudden shifts in weather conditions. 정혜림, Arirang News.
President Lee Jae-myung has called for a temporary relocation of the Gwangju military air base to speed up carrying out the mega projects on chips and AI. In a follow-up meeting on Monday, he instructed the Defense Ministry to review deploying and redeploying the airport's function to other military airports by mid-2028, but only for a certain period. The President's Chief of Staff, Kang Won-sik, said in a briefing that the government aims to establish a special act on the mega special zone within the year and a pan-government council under the Prime Minister's office. Now, the Southwestern Military Air Base has been chosen as the site for a new chip cluster. South Korea's economy is gaining momentum on the back of a strong semiconductor sector, though inflation and a sluggish job market remain key concerns. Baek Joo-hee has the details.
In its August Economic Trends Report released on Monday, the Korea Development Institute elevated its assessment of the Korean economy, stating that semiconductor-related sectors are driving economic growth. The institute highlighted that strong chip exports and business investments are key to this growth, positively impacting consumer spending. According to KDI data, total production in June surged 4.2% on year, picking up significantly from the previous month. Industrial production showed improvement, growing 5.8%. Although semiconductor output increased by a modest 2.2% due to base effects, standout industrial performers included automobile production, which jumped 12.6%, and machinery equipment, which soared 14.4%. Services production also increased 5.3%, led by financial and insurance activities as well as scientific and technical services. Domestic consumer spending showed clear signs of improvement. Retail sales grew 4.2% in June, fueled by a 10.9% increase in durable goods sales, which includes passenger cars and home appliances. Equipment investments saw a 21.7% increase in June, driven by a 58.5% surge in semiconductor manufacturing equipment and strong gains in transport equipment. Driven by global demand for artificial intelligence applications, Korea's exports surged 62.8% on year in July, maintaining a trade surplus of $30.3 billion. However, the KDI emphasized that significant domestic and external risks remain. External trade conditions are becoming increasingly unpredictable due to new U.S. tariff measures and heightened geopolitical tensions in the Middle East. On the domestic front, core inflation, which excludes volatile food and energy prices, edged up to 2.6%, indicating persistent underlying price pressures. Adding to uncertainties, the labor market remains sluggish as manufacturing and construction jobs lose momentum. As a result, the KDI states that navigating these domestic and global factors will decide the sustainability of Korea's economic growth. 백주희, Arirang News.
In the southern city of Busan, a specialized complex facilitates Korea's supply chain for power semiconductors. Now, our An Sung-jin is there to see how these companies create a part of that ecosystem.
Korea is a powerhouse for semiconductors, and when people think of the industry, names like Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix usually come to mind. Yet behind the country's global competitiveness is a vast network of smaller equipment, components, and materials companies that strengthen domestic chip supply chains.
This company, with around 80 employees, specializes in power semiconductors, but it doesn't make the final product just yet. It produces copper clips for power semiconductors that facilitates the efficient flow of both electricity and heat while improving electrical and thermal performance. Based on the design tailored for each customer, these copper molds are printed, inspected, and packaged for export, which take up 90% of their products. Imagine building a house. The power semiconductor is the house itself. Copper clips act like its steel frame. This company makes the steel frame and the specialized construction machine that joins the steel frame together, bonding copper for better stress operation.
In power semiconductors, the choice of materials is critical as it significantly affects performance and final output. The clip material we manufacture is not only used in electric vehicles, but also in NVIDIA's data centers, where we have recently seen significant increase in orders.
Power semiconductors are different from conventional chips. And as demand grows for electric vehicles, renewable energy, and data centers, so does the need for power semiconductors that can operate more efficiently and manage heat. Busan's power semiconductor specialized complex is the only complex of its kind in Korea. The city is working to build a local ecosystem around power semiconductors, particularly in materials, components, and equipment, as it looks to further broaden the scope of the initiative by expanding programs like training specialized talent.
The Korean semiconductor market has traditionally been dominated by memory semiconductors. However, we can differentiate ourselves as the power semiconductor remains an essential component, and in the long term, our goal is to establish an integrated public-private foundry cluster that can support companies.
And that's why the country continues to strengthen its policy support for the power semiconductor supply chain with initiatives to further enhance competitiveness. The push comes as the global power semiconductor industry enters another period of strong demand. But Korea's competitiveness will depend on more than its biggest chip makers, as the smaller companies supplying the materials, components, and equipment behind them will play an even bigger part. An Sung-jin, Arirang News, Busan.
Now, with AI driving a global memory chip shortage, Apple is reportedly turning to Chinese suppliers for its device lineup. Now, our Lee Ju-yeon breaks down what this move could mean for Korea's tech giants.
Apple is reportedly testing Chinese memory chips across its product lines. According to the Wall Street Journal on Sunday, Apple is in early talks with China's CXMT to source memory chips for devices sold in the Chinese market. Apple has been raising prices of its products globally, citing soaring memory chip costs from the AI boom after recently bumping up MacBook and iPad prices. A deal with CXMT could help the tech giant alleviate supply bottlenecks.
This is seen as a part of a strategy to pass on escalating chip costs to final product prices amid current memory inflation.
Apple is reportedly exploiting a loophole by sourcing pre-existing off-the-shelf memory chips from CXMT instead of custom-designed components. According to the Wall Street Journal, under current U.S. export controls, American companies are banned from sharing technical data, such as chip specifications, with CXMT. However, they do not restrict Apple from acquiring pre-existing chips or negotiating prices with the firm.
This rapid market expansion of CXMT has dealt a blow to Korean chip makers, Samsung Electronics and SK hynix. If Apple does source its chips from CXMT, an impact on Korea's standard DRAM sector will be unavoidable. Yet industry expert emphasizes that the broader fallout will be limited, as the core focus for Korean chip makers is high bandwidth memory, or HBM chips.
Since Korea also produces commodity memory, that market could certainly face some pressure. However, as domestic chip makers do not place heavy emphasis on that segment, the immediate impact on Korean companies is expected to be limited.
Still, analysts added that CXMT could become a serious threat down the road if its capacity expands and it begins taking a bigger bite out of the global market. Lee Ju-yeon, Arirang News.
Time now to take a look at what's been happening in the world of sports. For that, we have our sports editor, Paul Neate, joining us in the studio. Hello, Paul.
Hello.
Paul, let's start with the return of KBO after an unprecedented cancellation of all games last week. Now, the league will pick up again tomorrow, but with some slight changes, right?
Yes, that's right. KBO begins in full again on Tuesday after, like you said, that unprecedented 5-day suspension caused by the extreme heat. The league will now have 7 p.m. starts for both weekday and weekend games through September the 6th, an hour later for weekend games and 30 minutes for midweek games. There'll be new cooling breaks after the 3rd and 7th innings that will last for 4 minutes. There'll also be another break after the 9th if there are extra innings. For the fans, there'll be more drinking water facilities and shaded areas. KBO has lost 55 games to weather this year, with 30 of those coming from the recent heat wave. This sets up a busy September due to a big backlog. The added complication is the Asian Games from September 21st to 27th, meaning some clubs will be playing a bit of catch-up baseball without some of their key names.
Now to Major League Baseball now. Lee Jung-hoo saw his hitting streak extend further during the weekend, but then come to an end. There was also a return for Lee Jung-hoo, right?
There was, yes. So, yes, Lee Jung-hoo had his streak extend to a 6th match on Friday as the San Francisco Giants earned a 5-2 win against the Detroit Tigers. He went 1 for 3 with a walk, 2 RBIs and a run scored. His biggest moment came in the 2nd inning when he delivered a 2-run single with the bases loaded to put the Giants ahead. However, his streak came to an end on Saturday and then continued into Sunday. There was, though, a return for Kim Ha-sung on Friday, back in action for the Braves for the first time in 38 days. Unfortunately, he went 0 for 2 with a strikeout in a 3-2 loss to the Yankees. But it got better on Sunday. He didn't get an at-bat, but he entered as the automatic runner in the 10th inning. Michael Harris II then singled him home, giving Atlanta a 2-1 win over the Yankees. Elsewhere, Bae Ji-wan marked his return to the majors on Sunday with a single for the Milwaukee Brewers. Bae put down a bunt single and had a sacrifice bunt in 2 trips to the plate in their 4-3 win over the Minnesota Twins.
Sorry, extended hitting streak for Lee Jung-hoo, and then return for Kim Ha-sung. My apologies. Now, moving on to football now, Lee Kang-in made his first appearance for the Atletico Madrid.
He did, and he did it in Seoul on Sunday in the Kupang Play Series against Premier League club Manchester City. He came off the bench in the second half in front of a decent crowd at Seoul World Cup Stadium of around 50,000. He came on with the score at 2-1 to City, but the English side added a 3rd goal late on to make it 3-1. After the game, his new manager, Diego Simeone, said that he'd be looking to lean into his ability to play in different roles. Now, his new team begin the new La Liga season at home to Malaga on Wednesday, the 19th of August.
And now finally to golf. I understand 3 South Koreans have qualified for the PGA Tour playoffs. Tell us more.
Yes, 3 players. They'll begin on Thursday in Memphis. It's Kim Si-yu leads the way in 7th place in the points rankings, despite that's thanks to 10 top 10 finishes and despite not winning a single title this season. But Kim Ju-hyung is 34th after ending a 3-year title drought with victory at the Scottish Open last month. And Im Sung-jae is 53rd, but faces a battle to reach the second playoff event, having missed 2 months with a wrist injury. All, of course, are mainstays of the PGA Tour.
Alrighty, thank you for the wrap-up. As always, I'll see you next Monday, Paul.
Thank you, yeah.
Following today, we'll continue to see a pretty sharp temperature contrast between the east and west again tomorrow. The western regions highlighted in yellow on the map will climb above 32 degrees Celsius tomorrow. Meanwhile, along the east coast, where heavy rain has been pouring down in recent days, highs will stay much lower, around 28 degrees in Gangneung and 29 degrees in Pohang. Now, many areas have seen their heat wave advisories downgraded or lifted altogether. Tropical night advisories are still in place across parts of the Jeollado provinces and Jeju Island. Tomorrow, Seoul and Gwangju will start the day at 25 degrees Celsius, and Jeju will be at 26 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will get up to 33 degrees, Chuncheon 31, and Daegu 32 degrees. Summer heat around 35 degrees will stick around for the time being. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
That's all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.